Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for a special edition of NT Daily News. It's Election Day today, and we'll discuss propositions on local and statewide ballots.
We'll also talk about the controversial governor's race in Kentucky and update you on national politics. Thanks for joining us. I'm Takorian Tilley.
And I'm Brianna Adams. There are 4 propositions on the Denton bond election today. They're for city improvements like construction, purchasing land for parks, public artworks, and police department expansion efforts. If it passes, Proposition A would allocate $154 million for transportation-related improvements. It would cover funding for street construction or reconstruction efforts. That includes things like storm drains, traffic signals, and street lighting. Proposition B is the next largest dollar amount at just under $62 million for police department renovations. The funding would also cover the construction of a substation, police building by Fire Station 7, and an indoor firing range. The other 2 much smaller bond proposals would pay for parks and public art.
Well, I'm pretty glad that they're actually starting to try to renovate the city. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the roads in Denton, so I think it'll be pretty beneficial for residents and especially commuters across college campuses.
So another thing that Proposition A is going to cover is that there's a street rehab program. So with every street with a score of 20 or below is going to be a part of that. So those are going to be things that are going to be worked on. And certain streets that they're focusing their efforts on are Bonnie Bray, Hickory Creek Road, Ryan Road. And what they're going to be doing with that is widening the lanes so that traffic flow can just get a little bit better and move a little bit faster during those high traffic times of the day.
Yeah, but one of my questions is the $62 million for the police department. I know that they are asking for an indoor firing squad, so I'm kind of wondering what plans they have for the future, why they need so much money. So that's going to be something interesting.
So the $62 million, that covers the indoor firing range, and so they're no longer going to have an outdoor one. It's going to also cover an indoor classroom for stuff like that. It's also going to cover the substation we talked about, which is going to house patrol, neighborhood services, criminal investigations, and then renovations on the building, the police department in City Hall. So they're going to be adding restrooms, new points of entry, parking, locker rooms, just different stuff like that. But it is a pretty big amount, especially compared with Proposition C and Proposition D. Proposition D is discussing public artworks and construction of that and just getting those out there, putting them up in Denton, which is a huge thing for this town because we're an arts community and they're only getting about, I want to say, in the hundreds of thousands range. So it's significantly lower than the police department renovations and the roadway construction.
It'll be interesting to see the results of today's election. But in addition, the changes to the proposed for the city, voters will also be voting on 10 Texas constitutional amendments. One change falls under Proposition 4, which actually prohibits a state income tax. At this moment, Texas is one of 7 states that does not have a state income tax, but the Texas legislature could create one if it is approved through a statewide referendum. If approved, this amendment would actually make it harder for the legislature to do so. So another potential change is Proposition 10, which would change the handling of law enforcement animals. Under its current law, a police dog is currently classified as property and can be auctioned off, donated, or even destroyed when it retires. If this law passes, the amendment would allow the animals to be given to their handler or another qualified caretaker. So it looks like we have a couple of more things that the state of Texas is actually trying to take care of in addition to the city of Denton as well.
Yeah, and I was also reading up about Proposition 1, which was talking about how right now it's illegal for government officials to hold multiple positions. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I know at the moment they're working on the proposition which would allow officials to represent multiple municipalities. So that'll be pretty interesting to see how the people feel about that, having someone represent multiple areas. But I know even in addition to the propositions, there's also a couple of heated races going on. The Houston mayor race is very big. I know incumbent Mayor Sylvester Turner has 11 different people running against him today. So that'll be pretty interesting to see what the results are of that election, in addition to some counties voting or some cities voting for the open Texas House seats. So people have a lot to vote on today, so it's going to be pretty interesting to find out the results later on.
Yeah, and the national election is also getting close with the Iowa caucus right around the corner. So find out about the latest about national politics after a short break.
Here we go. Here we go. We're going to go out there in the rain. It's going to get wet. All right, here we go. Okay, quick. Oh, yeah. Yes. So much fun. Mwah. Yeah, Dad. We're getting so wet.
We just finished dinner and it was time for homework. He hates homework. It makes no sense.
I don't know how he finds anything in his backpack.
I can't find my backpack.
I couldn't even read his handwriting.
Holding the pencil makes my hand hurt.
I know he's bright.
Why is it so hard for me?
He's
I'm
just
trying
gotta
as
try a
hard
little
as
harder.
I can.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. Go to understood.org, a free online resource with support and tools to help your child thrive.
Maybe a hand with that?
Oh, thank you. Did you see anyone drop this?
You lose this?
Thanks for helping us.
No problem.
Is this your purse? You're welcome.
We do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 5 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
The field of Democratic candidates got a little smaller Friday. There wasn't much surprise when Beto O'Rourke announced that he was running for president shortly after losing a close Senate race to Senator Ted Cruz. He started his campaign blazing, only trailing behind Biden and Sanders. But as time went on, O'Rourke slowly fell down in the polls and finally announced this past Friday he was dropping out of the race. O'Rourke said he will not run against Senator John Cornyn, but some actually speculate he is vying for the vice presidential nominee. Another candidate who seems to be struggling is Julian Castro. The Castro campaign announced Saturday that it will downsize its campaign staff because of lack of resources. Castro has struggled to raise money for his campaign and said in October he will drop out of the race if he didn't raise $800,000 by the end of November. O'Rourke dropping out of the race leaves 17 Democrats left running for president, but there are a few names that are consistently ahead in the polls. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg. With the Iowa caucuses only 3 months away, candidates are preparing themselves for a very tough battle. Several of them were seen in Des Moines, Iowa at the NAACP forum this past Saturday, taking questions and trying to attract voters. Recent polls suggest there is a split on who is leading the pack.
And in the next couple weeks, I'm sure we'll get to see either the split grow or get a little bit smaller with these candidates. And with Beto, that he dropped out due to lack of funds, that was interesting to see because it's not something that's new. A lot of candidates drop out because of that, but he had a lot of traction going on. So it'll be interesting to see who else is gonna kind of wither away.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of tough to tell right now because the New York Times and the Siena poll actually published that Warren was actually leading Biden. However, a couple of other posts posted that Biden was leading Warren. So depending on what polls you follow, you're getting a little bit of different information. And both of those polls actually said that the voters weren't locked in, so that they might change their minds when the time comes. So it's actually very interesting. But yeah, Castro, it was sad to say that he's running a little low on funds and had to cut some people. But Kamala Harris has actually ran into the same problems, having to have some layoffs as well. So it clearly shows we're coming down to the wire, and funding is going to be a very big situation. And whoever has the most money, whoever's able to market themselves the best, will probably be on top. But it's still too soon to tell.
All right. Well, another area where the votes are too close to call is the governor races across America. Votes and views are split in the governor's elections, with the president hoping to secure a Republican win in at least 3 of the states voting today, including Michigan and Kentucky. Swing state Michigan voted Democrat in last year's congressional election after voting for Trump in the 2016 election and for Obama in the 2 presidential races before that. The turnout for the governor's election today could fall either direction. the same goes for Kentucky. Kentucky usually votes Republican, but it's a tight race this year between Republican incumbent Matt Bevins and his competition, Democrat Andy Beshear. The Mason-Dixon Kentucky poll says 46% of voters support Bevin and 46% support Beshear. So it's going to be a tight race. You know, the president came out on Monday night last night and he spoke. He praised Republican Bevins, and he's very confident that they're going to win the vote. But it's a tight race. So a lot of people in Kentucky, they're falling either or, and a lot of people are saying that Trump's impeachment inquiry could actually help Bevins because there's a lot of people that support Trump and there's a lot of people that oppose the inquiry. So.
Yeah, he's publicly endorsed him like you've already said, but what I really want to know is how will this election impact the presidential election? Because some people think if Bevins is actually put out of office, then Democrats have a chance, but some people also think that it might not matter. So it's going to be interesting to see if this election impacts no one in 2020.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, the Mason-Dixon poll also suggests the impeachment inquiry against Trump could help increase Bevins' voter support in Kentucky because of the president's popularity, like we were just saying. The poll says that statewide, 57% of people approve of the president's actions so far in office, and 65% are against impeachment efforts to remove him from office. And impeachment for Trump at this point in his presidency would mean that Vice President Mike Pence would become president, leaving his seat vacant until he nominates a new VP that both houses of Congress approve. Only 2 other presidents in history have been impeached, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, but both were able to serve the rest of their terms. It's important to understand, however, that no president has ever been removed from office this way. Impeachment is commonly understood as the removal of the president from office, but it is actually just a formal filing of charges for the Senate to vote on. The Senate decides whether or not to remove the accused federal official from office or bar them from holding office in the future.
And it's actually pretty funny that you talk about the Senate, because Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, actually said just a couple of minutes ago that at the moment they are not looking to convict President Trump if the House actually does impeach him. So it looks like even if he's impeached, President Trump will probably still serve the rest of his term.
And and we're still in the beginning stages, but a lot of people are asking that question. So what happens next? Because he only has a year left. The next elections are coming up. So is there even a point, is what people are wondering. Why at this point in the stage impeach him? So.
Yeah, and the last thing, just a couple of hours ago, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, Sondland, he actually retracted his statement for the investigation and actually said that there was a quid pro quo against Ukraine. So some new information. It looks like something might have happened. It might not have happened.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty interesting moving forward to see what the House does and what they do with this information itself.
Yeah, but what's interesting to note about that is that this isn't the first time that a lie has come out. So a lot of people are wondering, is this time going to be different? And why would it be different? Because time and time again, it hasn't been. So, we'll see.
Yeah, we will. But that's all we have for you today. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on NT Daily News.